You know that person who turns down group hangouts without a second thought? The one who's perfectly fine spending an entire weekend without seeing a single soul? Yeah, they're not lonely. They're actually operating on a completely different frequency than most people. And today, you're about to find out why. If you're someone who feels more energized after a day alone than a day with friends, who genuinely prefers your own company over crowds, welcome. You're about to discover traits you didn't even know you had. Today, we're breaking down the psychology of people who actually love being alone. The ones society calls antisocial or lonely, but science calls something far more interesting. Because people who choose solitude aren't running from connection. They're wired with traits most people never develop. Here's the thing. Most people fear being alone because their sense of self depends on external validation. They need others to feel whole. But people who love solitude have what psychologists call high self-sufficiency. Their identity comes from within, not from how many friends they have or how busy their social calendar is. It's not loneliness or isolation. It's a deeply rooted comfort with who they are when no one's watching. And that's actually rare. Studies from the University of California found that people who enjoy solitude score higher on emotional independence. They don't need constant reassurance that they matter. They already know. Here's trait number 1. People who love being alone are deep thinkers. While others fill silence with noise, podcasts, background TV, these people use silence to process, to think without interruption, to untangle ideas that need space to breathe. Research shows that solitary people have more active default mode networks in their brains. That's the part responsible for self-reflection, imagination, and complex problem solving. They're not spacing out. They're going inward. And that's where the most interesting thoughts live, not in a loud room, but in a quiet mind that's finally allowed to wander. Trait number 2. They have incredible emotional regulation. Because here's what most people don't realize. When you're constantly around others, you're constantly reacting to their moods, their energy, their chaos. But people who spend time alone learn to sit with their own emotions without distraction. They don't need someone else to fix their bad mood or validate their feelings. Psychologists call this emotional self-reliance, and it's a skill most people never build because they're too afraid to be alone with themselves. And let's be honest, society treats being alone like it's a problem that needs solving. The "you should get out more" comments, the pity when you say you spend the weekend solo, the assumption that alone equals sad. But what if your best mental state is quiet, uninterrupted, and entirely yours? That's not something to fix. That's self-awareness most people spend a lifetime searching for. Trait number 3. They're extremely selective with their energy. People who love being alone don't hate people. They just understand that their energy is finite, and they're not willing to waste it on small talk, fake friendships, or social obligations that drain them. They'd rather have 2 deep conversations a month than 20 shallow ones a week. And they don't feel guilty about it. This isn't antisocial. It's intentional. They're not avoiding connection. They're protecting the quality of it. Trait number 4. They're more creative. Science backs this up. A study published in the British Journal of Psychology found that highly intelligent, creative people feel less satisfied after socializing. Why? Because their ideas need incubation. Solitude is where creativity grows, where you can think without someone else's opinions clouding your vision. Hit subscribe if you've ever had your best ideas alone. The greatest writers, artists, and thinkers throughout history were often solitary, not because they were broken, but because creation requires space. Now, here's the nuance. Some people isolate not by choice, but because of past hurt. Betrayal that made trust feel impossible. Social anxiety that whispers you're safer alone. Depression that convinces you no one wants you around anyway. And for them, solitude becomes both comfort and cage. So ask yourself, do you choose alone time because it fills you up, or because being around people feels too painful? Because one is preference. The other might be protection you don't need anymore. But for those who truly love solitude, trait number 5 is this. They have extraordinary self-awareness. They know what drains them, what fills them, what they actually want versus what society says they should want. They find joy in things others overlook, the morning coffee ritual in silence, a book that makes them think for days, the freedom of a schedule that's entirely their own. Psychologists call this low need for social approval. These people don't need the crowd to tell them they're living right. Their inner compass is strong enough. So if you're someone who cancels plans without guilt, who recharges in empty rooms instead of crowded ones, who'd rather spend a Friday night with your thoughts than at a party, you're not broken. You're not missing out. You're just wired for depth over distraction, for meaning over noise, for quality over quantity. Tell me, do you genuinely love being alone, or do you think people like this are just avoiding real connection? And if you want the psychology that explains why you are the way you are, the next video is going to hit even harder than this one. Click it. You'll finally understand yourself.